Friday, the 28th of July. I know we're just talking about that. I can't believe that it's the end of July already. It's crazy. This year has flown by. I feel like the years fly by faster and faster as time goes on. But this has definitely been a fast year for sure. I think everybody's been here for at least one of our previous presentations. As we, Empowering America, get back to the business of helping people get out of debt and prepare to launch our new partnership with Care Guide Advocates, which is a company that specializes in helping people get out of medical debt and stay out of medical debt. So they are proactive and reactive. One of the things that we wanted to change as an agency is we wanted to make sure that we were doing more to give back to the agents in the field. You folks do a phenomenal job at helping your clients. You do a phenomenal job at helping us, pass our message on, which has been a great experience for my team and I, and all that. And I'm sure it's very useful for you folks to have the opportunity to help your clients with the things that we provide. But one of the things that I find or I found on the 1099 side of the fence since I started is that it can be really lonely unless you have a big team. It's kind of go out there and hunt it and kill it and eat it for yourself. But that means you're also responsible for everything about your own business. You're working in your business and you're working on your business. And sometimes, especially if you're busy, and maybe even more so when you're not busy and you're trying to be busy and find business, it's hard to stay on top of like business trends and things of that nature as the market moves because you're so focused on working inside of your business. So one of the things we're going to be really focused on moving forward is not just giving presentations that speak to the products that we offer. Well, I think those are very valuable, but we're also going to work on helping share educational things as well, share our experiences, share the tools and resources that we're using, how we put them to use, how we see other agents put them to use, and maybe make it more collaborative so you folks can learn from us and from each other outside of just the products and services that we offer. So that was the intention in creating this series. This is the first series of several series that we've created or that we are creating. And they were all designed, or in theory, I guess we'll look back and hopefully they will have been designed to build on top of each other. This first series is on AI. AI it's actually been around for a long time. There are a lot of products and services that we use and a lot of softwares that use different versions or variances of AI to power their engines. But it's just been recently in like November of last year where those kinds of engines have become available for popular public consumption and use. And that is why AI has been such a huge topic lately. It is one of those things that personally I'm very passionate about. I think that it is going to be very transformative in the way that the internet was transformative when we look back at it. And so I feel like it's important that for me and my team, especially in the business that we're in, that we stay on top of these kind of trends to the point that we've actually put an internal committee together where there's no particular like goal except to meet once a week and talk about AI and AI trends and AI news and the tools, which are, I mean, every week we've got new tools to talk about the same topics we were just talking about the previous week. I mean, that's how fast it's expanding. So we wanted to make sure that we were staying on top of it. And as part of that, we also wanted to share that experience and that journey with you folks as agents, with our goal being that this will lead into the next couple of series we have, which will be on social media and then on recruiting and then ultimately on connecting in sales. Any questions on any of that? Okay, awesome. This is interactive. We don't have a huge group. Feel free at any time to throw your hands up or just start chatting. I'll do my best to check in, but I hope it'll be interactive. I have no problem with you folks interrupting me and taking on these little sidebars or whatever. But so far, this is our third week of 4. In week 1, we went over kind of just an introduction to AI and its applications. Last week, we started digging into understanding some of the capabilities of ChatGPT and some of the other large language models out there, like Bard and Claude. We talked about the underlying technologies. We gave an overview of what natural language processing is. We explored some of the capabilities and limitations of ChatGPT and these other language models. And of course, we did a bunch of hands-on exercises, which I thought was really exciting to get to do. Um, and we have a YouTube channel. Both of those videos, if you weren't able to make either one of them, or if you would like to review, our new social media manager, Evelyn Garcia, has done a phenomenal job of putting those videos up on YouTube, and this one will be up on YouTube as well. This week, we are going to get into leveraging ChatGPT and other large language models for customer communication. We're really specifically going to be focused on talking about chatbots. That was a really fancy way of saying that's what we're going to be talking about today is chatbots. We're going to look at understanding the role of ChatGPT in customer communication and support. We're going to talk about how you could potentially design an effective chatbot for customer interaction. We're going to talk about some of the best practices that go into training these large language models to be able to handle some of the English is hard this morning, apparently, to handle some of the common customer inquiries and questions you'll get. We're also going to talk about managing expectations around potential challenges and deployment of a chatbot. We have large extremes of experiences. I've read a story about a gentleman who has a customer service staff. They reduced their staff by, I think it's like 98%. Reduced cost by 90% and improved efficiency and profitability by I think like 75% through the introduction of a chatbot, but that's not necessarily going to be everybody's experience. We've also had a lot of people that have experienced not great results because there is a lot of limitations to some of the models, and how you train it is going to determine how successful the chatbot is. So we're going to talk about some of that. And then we're going to go through a review of some of the helpful resources, like some of the types of programs or plugins or bots you could use if you wanted to explore building your own chatbot. If we have some time towards the end, I'll actually show you the interface for Zapier, which is one of the tools that we're talking about using. I can show you kind of like how easy it really is to build one of these things. Seems really daunting, but it really isn't once you start getting in there. And of course, as usual, we will always leave room for Q&A at the end. So one of the things that we've kind of talked about a little bit in the previous classes, and definitely shows here, is that ChatGPT and these other large language models are really good at automating or helping to automate common repetitive tasks. Customer inquiries, what's the best phone number? What's the best email address? What are your hours of operation? What kind of services do you provide? Those kind of things that usually people can navigate around the site to find, like an FAQ, your hours of operation, your contact information. A chatbot really, if trained correctly, is a much more advanced version of that and will allow for your customers to interact in a much more natural way as opposed to having to like navigate through a bunch of menus. That obviously allows you to provide 24/7, virtually self service support without you needing to interact with the clients a lot. It can help automate a lot of those routine conversations, and of course, free up yourself or you and your agents for handling just the more complex problems and things that come up that actually need handholding. So it kind of frees you up to focus on the things that are important while leaving all of the other stuff for your chatbots to handle. Now, when it comes to designing an AI chatbot, there are a few things that you're going to want to consider or take into consideration. The first and probably the most important is, what do you want it to learn? Um, do you have an FAQ? Do you have a list of common questions you get or common concerns that you have from your clients? That would be a good place to start. Do you have a series of emails that you have somewhere that people have sent inquiries where they've asked you questions and you've responded? Because using those kind of inquiries are very helpful. So the first thing you're going to want to do, figure out the common questions that your customers are asking over and over. Those are definitely the kind of questions that large language models like ChatGPT and Claude can help answer and automate. and that they're really good at answering and automating. You're going to want to either write responses to those, or like I mentioned, if you already have responses that you sent an email where it's using your tonality, the way you answer things, how your writing style sounds, the more examples of things like that you train the bot on, the more like you it will sound, because it can model its tonality when it replies. You can also, and if we get into the Zapier backend, I can show you, like, you can also tell it how to sound. You could tell it to sound excited, or you could tell it to sound professional, or you can just train it on your writing style and it will sound like you when it replies. So depending on what you're looking for. But you're going to want to write your responses out like a human. The key is to write the chatbot responses in a natural, friendly voice, the way you think you'd want your customers to be related to. You're going to want to train it with customer service data. You're going to want to feed ChatGPT with tons of previous customer interactions so it can learn your style and language. And the more you give it, the better off you will be. And depending on what you're looking for, you can even integrate it for seamless handoff, right? Uh, the whole purpose of designing a chatbot is to answer the mundane, repetitive questions to prevent you from needing to get into an interaction for those. But what you don't want is to have a disconnect at the end. You want to make sure that the chatbot is designed as such so when it gets to the end of that dialogue, it always has an offer to be able to transition to a live agent seamlessly, so that the client doesn't get lost in that dialogue. So that is another key piece, is making sure that you're integrating it for seamless handoff to a live agent. You're not probably going to get it right the first time. You're going to want to iterate on it over and over. You're going to want to test. Testing is critical. You're going to want to take the time to meticulously test the chatbot, fix any kinks you have before going live. First impressions do matter. You're going to want to have, maybe a couple people close to you interact with it. Your agents interact with it. If you have some clients that you have really close personal relationships with, you might want to have them test it out. You're looking for like places where the chatbot sequence might break. If they're asking a question and the next logical thing would be to be delivered to an agent, but they're not offered an opportunity to be delivered to an agent, that would be good feedback for you to have. So you can go back into your training process and figure out where that break is so you can add that piece into the dialogue. And I'll show you kind of where that stuff is too in the Zapier back office. Interaction is the key. You want to expect to continuously refine the chatbot as you get feedback. It takes a lot of iteration. It's going to take some practice to make the conversations feel genuinely human and to make them flow as if they were genuinely human. The goal is, of course, to carefully design the chatbot to handle common inquiries in a way that sounds human, that sounds friendly, and that's fully aligned with you, your brand, your voice, things of that nature. You want it to sound like you and be on brand for you. Taking the time to properly train the bot is going to pay off with smoother customer experiences in the long run. Questions on any of that? Okay. So that's some of like the design. What are some of the best practices for training these chatbots? We kind of mentioned it earlier. You're going to want to test with customers. Once launched, make sure you're getting direct feedback to improve the responses. The key is continuous training. Make sure you're always training it with real customer data. Make sure you're rigorously providing quality checks and feedback. Make sure you're auditing for biases and mistakes that might accidentally bleed their way into the communication. And make sure you're always refining with new data. Now, when it comes to managing expectations around these chatbots, like, I think, are going to be one of the most transformative things in most businesses, but we do want to be careful because there are some current limitations. I don't think we're there yet. I think, and that's why it's important that we keep training it, we keep iterating it, we keep staying on top of the technology, because I don't think we're quite there yet, but I think in the next year, 2 years for sure, we will be there. And it's important that you stay on top of them. So you want to be upfront about the capabilities of the chatbot. Be careful that you're not overselling what the chatbot can do to your clients or to yourself. Set realistic expectations on the limitations that you're going to face with whatever resource you choose to go with. And we're going to talk about some of the different options here shortly. You're going to want to ensure transparency. There's a lot of movement towards like the removing of cookies and going to a cookieless system and things of that nature. Customers will prefer human interaction, so you're going to want to make sure that they clearly know when they're interacting with a bot. While we want the bot to sound like us and act like us, we want the client to know that they're interacting with a chatbot and to know when they're being handed off to a live agent, right? We don't want to design it with any kind of like subterfuge in mind. We don't want to like trick them into thinking they're talking to us. We want them to understand. That way too, if there are any glitches or anything like that, they're not thinking that they're talking to a broken person, right? Uh, we want to plan ultimately for a seamless handoff. It might come later in the stages of development, but ultimately we want to plan for a seamless handoff so that the bot's not going to be able to handle everything the client throws at them. They'll be able to handle a lot of things that clients throw at them, but at some point they are going to need to speak to an agent. So you are going to want to make sure that you design your chatbot with that in mind. You're also going to want to make sure you have a way to track satisfaction metrics. You can monitor the engagements. You can see where people are leaving the chat experience. There are feedback systems for that. If you have a personal website or anything like that, you should have Google Analytics that can track those kind of things. But you're going to want to be able to track the experiences so you can iterate and fix any breaks in communication. So you're also going to have some kind of a feedback channel so that clients can leave you feedback. You can create a way for customers to report issues or suggest improvements to the AI system through like a ticketing system or even just a simple email contact us box. These chatbots, I've even seen examples of them being built into like messaging services where they're not using a website. They actually have like a messaging service that they build a chatbot into so they can do it right from their phone without needing to use a website or Facebook or anything like that. So there are a bunch of different ways you can design these things. Expect a learning curve depending on how technically proficient we are. I mean, it is a little wild west. There are some plug and play things, but even those plug and play things, as we'll see here when we get into the Zapier back office, are they're going to require you to go in and change some settings and fields and things of that nature. So you're going to expect a learning curve. It's going to take a little bit to get used to these kind of things, but it will be worth it. Patience is the key anytime you're adopting any new technology. Focus on incremental improvements versus perfection. Right. If you think you're going to get it right the first time, that can lead to frustration and just ultimately being like, I can't do this. So expect it will not work the first time. Expect you will get frustrated. I find that when that happens to me, I just walk away for 20 minutes or a day or a week and then come back to it. I just don't quit, but it's not easy, especially because there's not a lot. There will not be a lot of people you can go to for help. It's so new that there's not a huge community of people that are just out there developing this stuff. So if you want to be on the leading edge, if you want to develop this stuff, you might find yourself having to go through like YouTube videos and things of that nature to find it because there's not going to be a lot of just plug and play options, but it will be worth it in the end. Being transparent about the chatbot's use while proactively seeking customer feedback can help manage some of those expectations. This technology is powerful, but it does have some limitations. We've spoken before. It can be prone to errors. Depending, I'll show you when we get into the Zapier thing. There's a creativity slide, believe it or not, so you can actually allow it to be creative in its answers, or you can dial it down and have it be 100% factual. But depending on the creativity slide and just the access to data, I've literally seen chatbots make up legal cases. In fact, there is a lawyer, I don't know if he got disbarred, but I know he's recommended for disbarment because he used it to fight a case, quoted case law as his defense, and it turned out that the case law was not real because he just took ChatGPT's response at face value and didn't double check the response it gave. So it literally just made up a Smith versus Wesson and the whole 9 yards. And the guy quoted that as his supporting case law, and it just ended up being not real. So you have to be careful with the responses. Make sure you're double checking. But those are the kind of limitations we're going to have to face while this technology is being developed. We kind of talked about some of these. These kind of fall in the same vein, if you will, but these are kind of challenges in deployment, right? So there are still some technology limitations. Chatbots still have some accuracy issues. They still can't handle overly complex queries. If you talk to almost anybody in the AI space, if you're having problems with responses, their first recommendation is to try to break up your prompt into sub prompts instead of one long complicated prompt. Give it multiple individual directives, because it can sometimes get lost in the ultimate goal if you're trying to ask it to do too much at one time. So there's that. There are data privacy factors. Make sure you're thoughtful about what customer data you're using for training, because anything you put in there might potentially be susceptible to somebody finding out. So I would make sure that if I'm designing it, and I'm not a security expert, I'm not a web design expert, I wouldn't put anything that might fall into the wrong hands on there. It's one thing to feed it with data like my hours, my phone number, my contact info, the kind of carriers I work with. It would be another thing to try to put somebody's statements in the chatbot if you didn't have the appropriate security around it, for fear that somebody might pull up somebody else's statements and get access to information they shouldn't have access to. So there are always data privacy factors to be concerned about. There can be integration challenges. It is a new technology, so finding ways to deploy it can be difficult. The easiest way is, do you have a personal website that you have ability to control and hire somebody or modify yourself? That'd be the easiest way, because you can put the code into your website. If not, and you're using like Facebook or something like that, there are ways to integrate it, but it is a little bit more difficult because it is a new technology. There are not a lot of just plug and play options. Can it be done? Yes, absolutely. But being a new technology, that of course is always going to be one of the concerns, is connectability. Customer hesitation. Um, Customers will tend to be skeptical of new things, and not to be ageist, but I know my dad had a phone until literally, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. It took forever to get him on a smartphone. So some people just are technologically averse, like they just want to talk to somebody. So you could experience hesitation when you're trying to introduce technology to people who are not quite ready to accept that it's here. And you're going to want to monitor the usage for sure. You'll need to monitor how the customers interact with the chatbot once launched, and of course, watch for any kind of problems or disconnects in the process. You're going to want to avoid over reliance. The more you use it, the more you're going to want to use it. Just be careful that you're not using it as a crutch, and that you are double checking the work, and make sure it's not quite up to the complex human standards. So you're going to have to make sure that you're iterating and editing a lot of the stuff that you generate before you put it out. So don't just become overly reliant on it. Make sure you're double checking the work. And as always, deploying any kind of new technology always comes with growing pains. Beware of limitations and challenges from the start, and that allows you to plan accordingly. It's definitely a process, but so far we found it to be worth it every second. All right, we're almost to the fun part. So here are some of the third-party services that you can use in deploying a chatbot. You have things like Zapier or Chatbase. These can help manage and optimize AI chatbots with handy features and integrations. They're kind of plug and play. They're no code or code light. You can kind of go back there and fill out some fields and move things around, and it just kind of works. So if you're wanting to get into it, but you're not a coder, these are really good options. You also have website plugins like Tidio or WP Chatbot. These are plugins that typically work with other website frameworks like WordPress, hence the WP Chatbot, or Tidio, which works in WordPress. It also works in Shopify. So these would be plugins that are designed to work within other website frameworks. So again, you can introduce the concept of a chatbot to a website that you didn't personally code, but you don't have to have coding ability to be able to put it in either. You can just use these plugins, and generally, even without any coding language, if you can read some documentation, you can usually set these up alone once your site is up and running. And if you're really technologically averse, Fiverr is what we use. Fiverr here at MPowering America for a lot of things. We find a lot of contractors to help us with things on Fiverr, and they're often pretty cost effective. So if it's something you want to do, but your time is more valuable elsewhere, or your skill set is just not conducive to this kind of stuff, you can lay it out and find somebody to do the work for you. Building your own. Oh, I'm sorry. You also have custom platforms. You can literally go out there and build your own with services like Dialogflow or Amazon Lex. That would obviously be for larger scale projects, typically. But if you ever wanted to, those resources are out there. And you could even avoid building one and train like Claude or ChatGPT with your information, and then just feed client questions in, get the answers, and copy and paste those answers into an email. So you could even do it more manually in the beginning, where you just open a ChatGPT account or you open a Claude account, you open a thread on client services, you feed that thread with information about who you are and who you're, like what services you offer and your hours and things of that nature. It wouldn't be something that a client could talk to. It wouldn't be public if that's what you're doing. But if you got an email from a client, if you were getting a lot of inquiries through social media or through email, and you didn't want to have to manually go type the responses, once you have that thread trained, you could copy the question, paste it into that thread essentially, and it would generate the response, then just copy the response and paste it into wherever, the social media or the email that you're replying to. So there are a whole bunch of different ways, from the relatively mundane, open a Claude account, open a Chat GPT account and start playing, all the way up to like, I want to design my own uh, AI essentially, and everything in between. Questions on any of that? Okay. We do have a few extra minutes. So I am going to stop sharing this screen. I'm going to share this screen. Okay. You should be looking at a white screen, hopefully. It says like chat app in the upper left. Is Chatbot in the middle? No. Did I share the wrong screen? No, it looks like my calendar maybe. Let's try this again. Yeah. No. What is going on here? One more time. Oh, there it is. Okay. Now I think we got it. All right. So this is Zapier. I can get this little thing to go away. All right. This is Zapier. Let me see if I can find. Okay, so when you first log into Zapier, this is Zapier. This is like your Zapier dashboard. Zapier is a no-code software answer. Basically, what it does is it connects things together. So if you, for instance, get a certain type of email response and you want that response to always post to a spreadsheet, you could use Zapier to look at your email to say, anytime I got an email with this subject line, post it to this Google Sheet. And every time you get an email, it will automatically push that information to a Google Sheet. And there's any number of dozens and dozens and dozens of things you can do with Zapier. They're not necessarily AI. It's just it's called no code. So you can program things to connect together without having programming experience. If you register for their beta services, which is, so registering for Zapier is free, though they do have a paid account if you start using it. You can also register for their beta program. And one of the beta program things that we're going to be talking about today is interfaces. So in interfaces, you can create any number of things like a business coach bot, an explain coach bot, free offer, little lead forms. You can design all of this stuff in Zapier, and then you could embed it or code it into like a website. We wanted to create a chatbot. Zapchat. And so I clicked on chatbot and it brought me here. if I want to edit this chatbot, I just go to edit. Here's where I can change things like the name. Here's where it says Zapbot, and I want it to say something different here. I can do that. You can change the greeting type, generated or static. You can put what kind of greeting you want, prompt placeholders. What are you doing? This is like what gets sent. So what are you going to tell ChatGPT? In this case, they made it pretty basic. You're an AI chatbot. You're a helpful assistant, but you could tell it anything. You're a marketing professional with years of marketing and psychology experience and blah 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 blah, blah whatever you want. You can give it a tone. I want you to give answers like you're talking to somebody who's in fifth grade to keep them simple. Like you want to be excited, whatever you want it to sound like. This is the directive. The default model is ChatGPT. This account is my personal account. This is not a paid account. If we are paying on this account, get out of here. And we upgraded, we would have access to other models besides just ChatGPT. If we're paying, we could also increase our response length. Right now, it's limited to 2,000 characters. This is the creativity slider I was talking about. 0.7 seems to be about as creative as you really want it to be and keep it pretty on point. But if you want it to be really specific, you can drag it all the way down. If you want it to be super creative, like you're writing a love story, be as creative as you want. But the more creative you are, the more creative the answers are going to get. And the more you're going to need to double check them for correctness if you're looking for accuracy. And then once you get like the basic layout set up, how you want it to operate, then you have your data. Again, we would need to upgrade this account to upload data, but we can upload all kind of different document types, from text files to CSVs, which are like spreadsheets, PDFs, documents like Word documents or Google documents. We can upload these. So like if we have a company FAQ, or if we have PDF on the services we offer, we can upload the different documents, and that's where the chatbot pulls its data from. So if you're going to just create your own FAQ, if you're going to take a bunch of email responses that you got from customers so it knows how to write like this is where you would attach your data sources so that the bot would know how to answer. Then you would set up your actions, like when you get a response, do this, do that. This is kind of how you would set up an action, like to hand off the transaction to another email, to forward it to you, etc. And then once you get everything designed, this is where you would get the embed code, which is how you would actually put it into like a website. Or you could create an app and put it into your Facebook page so that people could interact with you through your Facebook page and things of that nature. And then you have all your settings. We're not going to go through all that, but all your typical settings and whatnot. So that's literally it could be as easy as this. Creating a Zapier page. If you already have a website, create the page, go through, design the bot, train the bot, and then get this embed code and put it on your website. Sounds simple. It's not quite that simple, but they are trying to make it as simple as possible, for sure. Any questions on what you're seeing here, the Zapier interface in the back office here?
So you can feed like PDF documents in and scan them to create databases out of that.
Yes, sir.
Now, does it know how to handle PDF formats and what they're going to ask for? Because if you're dealing with several things, you've got to be able to, it has to be able to understand what the format for the other side is in order to how to communicate between the two.
Right. So that is part of the natural capabilities of excuse me, of these large language models like ChatGPT or Claude, is the ability to decipher the information on the document, and not just the information, but also like the tonality and the contextuality of as well. So it can give a response that makes sense. So uploading it as a PDF, uploading it as like a CSV or a text file, it'll be able to access those files no problem, and it won't have to be limited to like only responding for the information that's on one or the other. It can actually understand how information in a PDF might connect to information in a spreadsheet, for instance, and be able to give a more complete answer as opposed to just kind of just, delivering individual uh, pieces of information. It can give you a contextual answer by looking at both resources.
Here's a real unique question. I hate to do this, but anyway, if you created a database of yourself with all your data, you'd have to make sure it was very secure, and would have to keep it off your computer and then put it on when you needed it. But could you actually create a database that would automatically be able to fill out forms?
Probably. I don't see why not. Yeah. Uh, that would be a very interesting use of that. I don't see why not. I saw a use similar that was mind blowing, and I don't know how I feel about it. There was a lady who she's journaled her whole life, and she took her journal from when she was like 10 to 12 and scanned it and uploaded it, and then had a conversation with her 10-year-old self about who she is today to get feedback on what her 10-year-old self felt about who she became.
Wow.
Like
Yeah,
asking her 10-year-old self like what she thought about life and where she was going to be, and then telling her like what I'm doing and what do you think about that, and getting feedback from this 10-year-old version of herself based on where she's at and what she's done.
because what I was thinking about is how many times do you end up having to do multiple things that are all similar on the same day, answering the same questions 10, 20, 30 times? It just eats up your time. So if you could have your own self database, and it could go in and just automatically fill out address, phone numbers, email, the whole 9 yards, you wouldn't have to worry about spending time filling out ridiculous forms.
Yes, I have no doubt you can do that now. It would take probably a lot of work because there's nothing that's like pre-packaged yet. But things like that are exactly what AI is aiming to solve. The mundane stuff that we do all day, every day, that detracts from our effectiveness at being present for our clients and things of that nature, and detracts from our overall happiness. That's what AI is really seeking to solve. So while I think it's achievable today, it'll be difficult, but I think in the next 6 months to a year, a couple of years, that's going to be an everyday thing.
And then the voice conversion, if something called you up and asked you questions, you could actually turn it over to your chat and let it answer the questions verbally to somebody asking questions. That would be amazing.
Uh, I when I first heard of AI, I talked to a couple of people about it, but it was brand new. But I also recruit people, and I reached out to a person who I have trained in the past, and he sends me pretty good people occasionally. And I asked him one time when I was recruiting recently, like maybe in January or February, if he had any people. It's actually when I brought Ariana on, when I was recruiting for that wave of people. I asked if he knew anybody, and he's like, "Hey, I've got this person. I need you to evaluate this call." So he sent me a phone call as a sales presentation. I listened to the presentation, and I've played this presentation for my team. It was a Asian female salesperson, and it was a conference call. There was at least two people. I feel like there was at least like maybe three people on the call. The salesperson was selling their services to like help with prospecting and whatnot. And she was talking about the company, and these people would like interrupt her and ask questions. And like one of the things she said was the company was started by a couple of brothers, and then one guy interrupted, said, "What's the brothers' names?" And then she's like, "Oh, that's a good question. The brothers' names are this and this and this," and carried on. And I listened to this presentation for like 5 minutes. It was totally smooth. There is no awkwardness. She answered all the questions. She maintained control. They basically made the sale. They set the appointment for the next follow up, and it was so smooth that I felt like it had to have been like a warm prospect. Like there's no way it was a cold call or a first call, because it seemed like these people were just, it was just too smooth. They knew too much. It felt like. Well, it turned out that the female salesperson was an AI. It was not a salesperson. It was a presentation within a presentation, like being in the multiverse. Basically, they were being presented the services by the service that they were buying, and they did not know that they're being presented by the service they're buying. They were trying to expand into putting digital virtual AI people on the phone to answer prospect questions to be handed off to real salespeople. And so they had set up the sales presentation, and this was their presenter. They just didn't realize until after the call was done, when the closer followed up, that the person they were talking to was an AI. The only problem was that they spent an inordinate amount of time, I'm guessing, perfecting their AI to sell their thing. And when my buddy got in and they tried to train their AI to sell my buddy's thing, they couldn't quite get the same smoothness out of it. So they ultimately didn't move forward. But that's only to say we're only a little ways away from that being that way. I mean, if they could do it for themselves, they will be able to do it for other people. So it's coming. It's that whole being able to represent yourself or have digital bots and have voice interactions, not just, chat interactions. I mean, we're limited amount of time away from that.
That's why Hollywood is so terrified, and the actors.
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, and they're fighting to keep AI out of the Hollywood as much as they possibly can because they're scared. They know what could be coming.
It's funny you say that because I just saw something on that in the last couple of days too. And one of the AI creators I follow, his prediction, I think this is right on the money, is that SAG and the Writers Guild will come to an agreement. They will attempt to give them guarantees around the AI conversation, but all that's going to do is leave the door open for individual groups of people to put out movie quality movies through other channels that are not currently available. And there's the guy who was gave an example. There's a Discord channel. There's like 12 people that are trying to make this movie, and he showed a clip of the movie they're making. Like, it was ridiculous what they've already done with what they have. And so Hollywood might be able to restrict the people that are in the unions from being able to use it. But all that's really going to do, I think, maybe if they don't embrace it, is leave the door open for people who are not in Hollywood right now to revolutionize that industry too. AI is not going to go away, so they're not going to be able to legislate it. They're not going to be able to put it back in the box. They might be able to protect Hollywood for a limited amount of time, but other people will find a way to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
If they're not careful. Interesting times. Right. Any other questions about the Zapier thing?
So next week, are we going to be going into the medical reduction thing?
I'm so glad you asked, Rex. Yeah, so coming up next week, we are not going to be doing our AI series. This was week 3 of 4, but we are launching our relation with CGA next week. So we will be doing week 4 for the AI class on 8/11. So 2 weeks from today. And we kind of talked about it briefly in the beginning, but once we're done with the AI class, Evelyn Garcia, our social media manager, is going to be talking about how to build your brand through social media and AI. And then Ariana Garcia, our recruiter, enterprise manager, she's going to be talking about how to recruit and use social media and use AI to recruit and expand your reach within your business. And then Destiny is going to be following that up with a series on how to strengthen your sales skills through communication and connections. So we've got another 12 weeks plus the last week of this AI class ready and in the wings, on top of any other vendor training stuff we do, which we will also sprinkle in between that. So it won't be just 12 weeks of learning. We'll have some vendor stuff as well. On that note, though, yes, next week, 8 4 at 10 o'clock, so same time, we will have care guide advocates in the house. The primary focus is going to be, at least at first, is going to be their hospital bill eraser. It's a way for us to help clients eliminate medical debt that is already in existence, but they do have a lot of other services within their service that helps them moving forward. So we'll be very excited to have that team on the call to train you folks on their services. That's next Friday, 8/4 at 10 a.m. Pacific. We've had a few emails go out dripping the concept, but no registration emails have come out. We've had a couple people call, like, how do we register? How do we register? Because we do have so many things going on, we're trying to keep the registrations to one thing a week so there's no confusion. So starting Monday, you folks will see emails with the registration links for next Friday's event. So you haven't missed anything yet. That'll be coming out starting Monday next week.
Fantastic.
Yes, sir. And then we are still working on a bunch of things on our end to help our relationship with our clients and improve transparency with the advent of all of these new relationships and whatnot. We're going to work on ways to get you guys better visibility into your client enrollments. If you are enrolling agents, your agent enrollments, commissions, and things of that nature. We're also working on, as we get through some of these relationship launches, producing a commission addendum so it's clearer what you can make utilizing which of our products, because I feel like that's not exactly clear. And we are hopefully in the next 30 to 60 days going to be launching a Discord community. We're trying to make it easier for you folks to reach us without needing to like call or send an email, to kind of just be able to chat. We've created the Discord community. We have our people in it. We're just kind of testing, making sure we don't have any bugs because the technology is new to us. But once we're sure it's good for us, we'll start rolling it out for our agents as well. We're going to invite our vendors in there and our agents in there. So hopefully it'll open a lot more dialogue, and you can get answers quicker when you're looking for help, especially when you're sitting in front of a client. Maybe you can get help directly from a vendor or from one of us, so without having to call or wait on hold or send an email. So those are some of the things that we're working on in the near future. Questions on any of that? Okay, we've kind of been talking throughout, but any last questions before we wrap things up? Okay, well, if there are no more questions, we thank you all for joining us and taking time out of your Friday as usual. We look forward to speaking to you throughout the rest of the week.